If it's revealed tomorrow that Roenick was playing through a pretty significant injury and has been for some time, would that change anybody's opinion on whether he's an $8 million player going forward?
I've never thought like he can get 8 million elsewhere, so that can be quote unquote market price. But what the Canucks are willing to pay Philip Roenick is allowed to be a different number.
Well, I believe Earth reported it was 6.5 that they offered him.
Yeah. And the agent can jump up and down. He's not worth. That's fine. Like you can go find that money elsewhere. That's the whole point. Is in our pay structure, that doesn't work for us. It's like Nikita Zadorov. Nikita Zadorov, he might get a crazy $6.6 million a year deal from somebody.
I was getting to Zadorov.
Canucks can't pay that. So you have to stay within the bounds of sanity for your team. Just because Jack down the street is willing to give that money doesn't mean you have to.
Agreed.
It doesn't mean that is the reasonable amount. There's a long list of National Hockey League players that are paid way more than they should be under anybody's roster, but people get desperate, and so they overpay. But that isn't the true market value. That was the market value for stupid Jack down the street, but that's not really what he should be making in the NHL. So if Philip Roenick wants something that begins with an 8, that's not for the Vancouver Canucks. It just is not. And if he has an injury, that explains some of the depreciation of his stats, but it doesn't mean that, I should just pay him $8 million a year now.
Well, I'll be curious to see where that injury came from on the schedule, because in the second half of the regular season wasn't very good.
But if you're good enough to play, you're good enough to contribute in some way. And Philip Roenick contributed almost in no ways for the better half of a season.
So let me ask you this. Okay, you're not willing to go to $8 million for Philip Roenick. Are you willing to pay Brandon Montour or Brett Pesce $8 million plus to be your number one pair right side guys? Those would be the top free agent defensemen available outside of Myers and Chris Tanev, who we can have conversations about going forward. But Pesce and Montour, would you pay either of those guys $8 million? Montour played 23 minutes per night this year, scored 33 points. Pesce, as we know, is not a big offensive guy. I believe it was only 13 points for him this year, but also a 20-minute plus defenseman.
Montour's going to be an interesting study because he dropped 40 points this year from 73 to 33. And he is 30. He's got the big 3 to start his age. Pesce is 28, I think, as we speak.
He's 29.
29 now?
Yeah. It was 13 points this year in 70 games.
Yeah, so you get a lot less offense out of him. But what is it like? Is this going to be a precipitous drop off for Brandon Montour? I don't know. I would be more inclined, though, based on defensive responsibility, to pay a guy like Pesce that kind of money. Pesce can be a Tanev sort of presence there on your pairing.
And okay, but we spent a good part of the first portion of the year, let me bring you both back there, to talking about how defense pairs have changed. And you don't want to saddle an offensively creative guy like Quinn Hughes with a pure defender. You want to play him with someone who is also good on the puck and can bring out the best of him, as opposed to a guy who is simply going to be the stay-at-home cover up in case Quinn gets caught.
But that's a great segue into a guy like a Tanev. Tanev gets you no points, but he moves the puck beautifully, and he can play with a puck with a point getter beautifully. So it's not a granite block. You're not putting him with a guy that doesn't move and doesn't move the puck.
Well, although
what?
Tanev moves the puck, but he's 34 years old, Blake. Like how much longer is Chris Tanev?
No, I'm not advocating for Tanev. Tanev is a very risky sign, especially at the numbers that he's probably going to, unless Chris Tanev is signing for the exact same money he made this year. I'm not in on Chris Tanev if I'm the Vancouver Canucks.
And he's getting a raise after this.
You would think.
Oh, he's at $4.5 million, and particularly if Dallas goes on to win the cup or even just get to the cup. Yeah. Hey, here's my next question on the Roenick side. Are there going to be teams lining up to trade you a top pair right shot defenseman so that they can acquire Hronek and then have to pay him $8 million per, because he's going into the final year of his deal. Any team that's going to acquire him is going to want a contract extension with him. They're not just going to pay you a top pair right shot defenseman in return to keep Hronek around 1 year on whatever the arbitration amount is and then wave goodbye to him in unrestricted free agency. So how difficult is a trade of Filip Hronek to replace what he effectively is, your top pair right side guy?
I think you do it later. So what you do is you tender the qualifying offer to Filip Hronek, get him locked up for you for next year. You go out
he files for arbitration.
And what's the concern there?
Well, he's going to file for arbitration, and then he's going to get, $8 million or thereabouts, and it's going to be a 1-year deal.
I'll believe he gets $8 million in arbitration when I see it.
Well, I mean, Cervellius explained this to us all year. The case is there. Like,
I'll believe when I see it.
And okay, so let's say it's 7-7.
Yeah,
like that changes the price of T for you.
I think the optics are a little bit better for an acquiring team.
Okay,
but again, hear me out.
Take on the nut here.
Yeah, hear me out. So you tender that, he's signed, sealed, and delivered for next year. Then you go out and you see if you can sign one of Pesce or Montour if they get to free agency. You see if you can do that, and then if you do, then you trade Filip Hronek not for a top pairing defenseman. You trade him for a winger.
Yeah.
And you pay it's a bit of a sunk cost there.
Right.
You didn't get the full value out of Filip Hronek, but you've avoided overpaying. Again, this is something that happens with the NHL GMs all the time.
Montour or Pesce, you can
what's that?
So you feel better about the way Pesce or Montour will age at $8 million per year than Hronek. Is this what I'm hearing?
Yes, there's a proof of concept there for those guys being at the top of their games in their roles.
But Hronek is 36. The guys we're talking about are several years. They're
26
or 26.
Yeah,
the guys we're talking about are older. Pesce's 29.
That's Montour what I'm saying. They've proven what they are year to year.
But you're paying them for their non-peak years.
Do you know
still
what
have peak years?
Do you know what Filip Hronek is? What kind of how would you even describe Filip Hronek? What is he? I have no idea.
And he's an all situations defenseman with a hell of a shot, who's one of the scarcest commodities out there.
A shot that he never used.
A shot that he used plenty in the first half of the season.
Right. So why didn't he use it in the second half?
I think you're going to hear about an elbow injury tomorrow.
I'm going to need more information on that.
Well, okay.
So we can talk about that when we have more information at our disposal. But
so if you
Matt, we don't have the information.
No, I understand we don't have the information.
So he didn't shoot. He was okay in all situations, but he's not great in all situations. He's not a defensive defenseman. He couldn't hold the blue line in the playoffs.
Got beat lot one-on-one.
Hammered against the inboards.
Guys, I just think that we are fixating on his profile in the second half when, again, I think you're going to hear about a significant injury here.
Yep.
Have we completely forgotten what he was in the first half? Outside of Rick Tocchet and a healthy Thatcher Demko, he's on the podium in terms of reasons why the Canucks turned it around.
He was wonderful.
One of their most important and indispensable players through the first 40 games.
What does he do well defensively?
I mean, I have to take a deeper look, but for the most part, I think he's in pretty good position. I think he's got a pretty decent stick. He's not a weak guy by any stretch. He's got some strength to him.
The number of
much like Quinn Hughes, he is able to avoid having defending because he's pretty good with the puck on his stick. He moves it, and they create offensive.
I would challenge there. Like there's not a single time that I saw him carrying the puck, eluding players that I thought.
I'm not talking about a one-man breakout play. I'm talking about he makes a good first pass. He gets the puck out.
Good, yeah, not great. Okay. I'm not paying him $8 million. His breakout pass. Like it's just not there. Can he shoot? Can he be an offensive contributor from the blue line? Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit. It's not that I disagree with your position or I'm fully on board with Hronek, but let me throw one more thing at you since we're having this discussion. You know, the old axiom in hockey, you make a trade, you're less likely to know more about the guys you're bringing in than the guys you're moving out. You know what Hronek is. You know what he isn't. You've got more unknowns with a Montour or a Pesce, no?
I mean, you got more unknowns from a first-hand perspective,
The fit on your new team.
and
Right.
and the fit to some degree, but they've got longer resumes. Jim Rutherford probably has a lot of friends in the Carolina organization, probably still. And
Mhm.
I think they're a pretty known quantity in the National Hockey League.
Okay.
You've also got now a little bit of an education. We were all surprised. Why did Steve Yzerman give up on Philip Hronek?
Right.
He's an incomplete player.
No, I think it was Steve Yzerman knew that this was going to be a difficult.
Well, that's what I mean.
negotiation.
But if he was a complete player, Matt, you'd just give him the money. You'd be happy giving him the money.
complete players, I mean, there's so few in the NHL. You do have to accept players with faults. That's something.
Well, Pesce doesn't give you offense, for instance. But
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
do one thing particularly well,
Mhm.
then that's worth it. And I don't care what the injury was. If he's injured,
Well,
if he's
that's
so
foolish.
injured,
Like, that's foolish.
Matt,
Yeah.
no, it's not. If you are so injured that you are a shell of the player that you should be, you shouldn't be in the lineup. Do you expect a down tick? Sure, I can accept a down tick. He was 0.7 points per game before the injury. He went down to 0.5 points per game. Yeah, no problem. He was a little bit dinged. To have the bottom fall out, like, sit him, get him 100%. Like, why wasn't that a consideration? Should they have sat him in January? Where did it all go? Because it was the desert all of a sudden for Philip Hronek.
Mhm.
And so if you are completely muting the one thing that you do particularly well, what's the point in him being in the lineup? That's my point.
What about Zadorov?
Give him all the money.
So
Well, where's the
on
walk away
13
point?
games, you're going to look at it and say,
No, we loved him in the regular season too.
Okay.
And
so you're going to pay 3 left shot defensemen, and you're willing to walk away from your number one right shot.
I say it somewhat in jest.
Okay.
There is obviously a cap, and if the agent gets crazy with demands, no, you have to walk away from that player too. But I'm willing to listen up to a pretty decent number for like a 6 times 5 deal for Nikita Zadorov. Yeah, I think about that.
AFP Analytics has him projected with their most recent update 5 times 5.3.
What's Hronek?
And I do that.
They have Hronek at a long-term deal now at 7 times 7.5 or shorter term 3 times 6.1.
I don't think he's signing that deal.
No.
And they had him before at 8.3.
Yeah, he was over 8. So he cost himself some money. So when I said 7.7, that's roughly what you're looking at. And that's if he accepts it.
I just think we have to be careful about, agents sending out vibes to the insiders.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm saying
Well-
my player's signing for $8 million, and everybody just takes that. Oh, he's going to be an $8 million player. Well,
But
no,
I guess what
an $8 million player on one team doesn't mean he's an $8 million player. Like, if that was the case,
Well,
like
the
Ilya Mikheyev's a $5 million player. Like, no,
but
he's not.
The AFP analytics site, that's why it's useful, is that it takes every contract out there.
and tax breakdowns. too.
Exactly.
They factor that in.
Exactly. So it's a pretty comprehensive site in terms of predicting contract value. Doesn't mean it's always 100% accurate, because all it takes is one GM or owner to lose their mind, and the next thing you know, somebody.
That's my point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm a little curious and frankly somewhat vexed, Blake, that because we really liked a guy for 13 games in the postseason, you're willing to go 6 years on him now at his age.
Recency
But
bias.
you're going to throw out the totality of the first half of the season with a guy who is a better player, was a better player, is a better player, and plays the more scarcer position.
Well, we're not equating the two values, right? Those are very different contract values. So, yeah, I'm willing to take.
You're going 6 years on Zadorov.
Well,
6.
what was the?
He's 29 years old.
It was 5 by 5.3, wasn't it? Wasn't that the AFP? We're going
No, but you said you would go 6 at 5.
no 6 million.
Oh, 6 million over
at
5 years.
Yeah. That would be my high end, and
So you'll pay Zadorov $1.75 million to $2 million less on what a deal that's what 1, maybe 2 years less than Hronek, but he's 3 years older.
Ready, tall defenseman, aging pretty well here with a guy like Tyler Myers.
Mhm.
You can't teach size,
And his athletic tools are awesome.
and
Mhm.
you say sample size, and that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is, in the most important games of the season, he was amongst the best players on the ice for the Vancouver Canucks, and the most
Fair.
important. Those are the most important games. So you're telling me about the guy that ripped it up from October to December. Okay. I mean, great.
Well, but again, like I suspect you're going to hear about a significant injury to Hronek that he played through. And, it's funny because sometimes those players are lionized in the Stanley Cup playoffs and sometimes they're villainized.
But the ones that are lionized, Matt, are the ones that still contribute. Steve Yzerman scoring those goals on one leg.
For sure.
They
Didn't contribute
contributed
enough. No one is going to argue that he contributed enough. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, when you remove the emotion from it, one guy is the scarcest commodity on the National Hockey League marketplace. If you are going to overpay for one position on a hockey team, it's your top pair right shot defenseman. Why? Because if you don't have one, you don't have a chance. And the supply does not meet the demand.
Right.
So you have to go over and above.
But the Canucks
for
have
that
the
player.
ability.
Left shot, third pair defenseman, you don't have to go over and above.
The Canucks have the ability to safeguard themselves. The timeline permits that they can get him safely in the back pocket, where if they need to use him, they need to use him.
Mhm.
But then they can go out and see if there's another option that makes him dispensable. So they don't have to gamble on.
Well, I would argue that is a gamble. Yes, you have alternatives, you have options. Yeah, you do. But I would argue it's a bigger gamble to go out and sign a 30-year-old to an $8 million deal that you don't know than it is to try and do a deal with a guy and works when he's healthy with your club who is younger.
Well, first of all, you don't know that it's $8 million for Pesce. We'll see. And you get the benefit of being in the negotiations without having to commit.
Fair. I mean,
why wouldn't you?
If you can get Pesce at a lot less than that, then
again, it's Lou Lamoriello rule. You've got the ability to be in on that. Why wouldn't you be in on it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And if you have to make a move on Hronek, then you have to make a move on him. But if you don't, you don't.
5 times 6.2 projected for Pesce.
6.2. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
5 years at 6.2. See, if you get that contract, I'm ready to make that move rather than $8 million.
What is AFP saying on Montour?
6 times 7.7.
Yeah.
Because he's got the more offensive contributions.
That's right.
And he was coming off a pretty
we'll
tough
see how
injury.
it shakes out.
And I will say just one thing, and Canucks fans, they want to trade Hronek for Martin Necas. They want to trade him for Nikolai Ehlers. We have spent how long asking for a competent partner for Quinn Hughes, and finally Hronek elevates Hughes.
Well, that's
now
it.
Hughes elevates Hronek. I would just caution people, be careful on wanting to trade this asset out after wanting something of his quality for so long.
Well, this is
cap is going
what
up.
I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
The year-to-year expected average of the cap's going up. I know Hronek has his deficiencies, but it's not like that deal is going to be an albatross going forward. It is likely to age pretty decent if he continues to play with you.
And it's probably going to age better than a 29 or a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay. How about this, guys? How about this? Asking the Canucks to improve their wingers and improve the right side of the defense is too much to ask in
It
one
might be
offseason.
too big for this offseason. I mean, Alvin and Rutherford. Alvin and Rutherford talked about that last summer. They were talking about how this is a continuous project, right, and a process.
Like you can,
like they were very, they were as surprised as anyone else that the team performed as well this year. So we knew this was a multi-year project, and it still could be a multi-year project.
So you can bring in like one extra winger, maybe, but to like really solve the problem, you probably have to choose one or the other.
Right.
Like, is it crazy for them to sign Philip Hronek and sign Brett Pesce?
No.
And then just nibble and get another $4 million winger to aid the winger problem.
And then you deal with winger at the deadline if you're in it, right?
Yeah.
And people are asking on YouTube, how are they going to be able to afford Zadorov and Hronek at their expected ask.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they can.
Yeah, there's a
Which
lot
is
of
why
things
you
to
have
answer.
to prioritize. But just make no mistake about this. If you remove the top pair right shot defenseman and don't adequately replace, the Jenga tower comes down.
Well, no one's saying don't adequately replace. No one's suggesting that.
No, but that's a risk. If you just, this guy's too rich for us, let's go out and find like Pesce could fall off the table at his age, right? With his miles and the way he plays.
He just turned 29. I don't think he's fallen off the
Well,
table.
probably not, but there's been many a free agent out there that hasn't worked out in the least with their new team. You know, Hronek, when healthy, works here.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.